Are we live? Well, how wonderful is that? And I appear to be. Oh, there, that's a little better, isn't it? I guess I'm. I didn't mean to be this short. I don't know quite what's happened. But I'm not going to fiddle with it because I have too many wonderful things to talk about. And I know I'm ridiculously early, but there we are. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was the last few days because we've been mesmerized by the songs in the stores, and we've been mesmerized by everybody sending wishes and decorating odd places in their homes for no particular reason. So you can't really avoid it. You can't really get away from the fact that there appears to be an event taking place. So I hope whatever it was that you endured, however many times Aunt Mary made you want to just, hit her quietly with a brick when no one was looking, um, took you to the edge of sanity. I really hope you had a nice, a fun, a happy, a joyous, a warm, redeeming, I'm trying to think of all the words, and weekend. And if you really don't buy into any of the razzle-dazzle Shazamness, if you really are a bit of a Scrooge, then the joy for you is that it doesn't last. It's over soon, and then everyone goes back to being whoever it was they were. Which brings me to my subject today. My subject today is kind of alter egos. Really, though, it's about survival. And I have this whole thing that makes me crazy than most things. And that is people who just sort of expect survival to happen, that they just kind of have to wake up in the morning. And there's actually more of an effort that you're supposed to put into it. And one of the stories that I want to illustrate my point with today is this odd thing that happened to me during a stage show many years ago. We were performing in a very old building that had been a home, a private residence, and it was very elegant. And it was one of those places where the serving staff, the house staff, slept upstairs. And how to get to their upstairs rooms, you climbed this rickety set of stairs that twisted and turned and went on forever, sort of at the back of the house, behind the kitchen, really. And it's a picture upstairs, downstairs, downtown Abbey, whatever. So we were doing this show, and they had converted 3 or 4 rooms upstairs, I think, into this very charming drawing room kind of effect where they could seat about 80 to 100 people, and you could put on a show. There was no stage per se, but it doesn't matter if everybody's sitting facing you and you are facing them. You have the beginnings of something, as long as you've brought some material. So we were doing this show, and I was waiting backstage for my entrance. Everybody else was out there on stage. The director was off to one side in a little anteroom, and I was waiting backstage for my moment. I had my hand on the doorknob being, where doorknobs usually are. I just have to click off to low FPS. Merry Christmas, FPS. So I had my hand. Oh, where's my hand? Where? Okay, here's my hand. I had it on a doorknob, and I was waiting. But I made a mistake because I knew it was going to take a minute or so for them to get to the place where I would open the door and say whatever it was. And I took my hand off the doorknob, and I took a step back. Not realizing how close I was to the top of the stairs. And then I proceeded to fall backwards in the dark, down them, all of them, every single one. And I learned 2 things very, very quickly. One is that it is almost impossible to fall quietly, especially on a set of stairs that are made of wood and hollow underneath. And the other is that you can't speed it up. It takes as long as it takes. And it really hurts, and you're not allowed to say anything because, by the way, you're not supposed to be falling. reached my spot because he was still saying something. So I checked to see if I was visibly bleeding anywhere, and that I didn't have lipstick all over my face, other than where it was supposed to be. And then when it was my moment, I opened the door and walked in, behaving for all the world as though everything was fine. And the most extraordinary thing happened. Everyone looked like they were caught in suspended animation. The entire audience and the cast of actors were all staring at me in wonder, frozen in time. And I kept going. I kept going, saying the thing I was supposed to say, doing the thing I was supposed to be, being that me in the way that I always am. And when the scene ended, and the audience was a little sporadic in there, they didn't really know what to do, clapping mode, and I thought, well, I pulled that off better than that. Anyway, we all, made our exit. And waiting for me outside was the director. And I said, well, that had kind of an odd turn, didn't it? And she said, are you all right? And I said, why wouldn't I be all right? And she said, because you fell down the stairs. How would you know that I fell down the stairs? I said, trying to, pull it off. And she said, because everyone in 3 counties heard you, including the audience. And none of us knew if you were going to come back alive. And I said, well, of course I was coming back alive. The show must go on, and it was going to be mine. And I said, is that why everybody looked like they'd been behind the left ear with a sock filled with sand? And she said, yes, you were the only one who looked like everything was fine. Because what the hell else was I going to do? Really? Crawl on sobbing? I mean, nobody had a script for that. And I didn't want to disappoint anyone because, well, we'd all worked so hard, and human beings are very, very flexible. If we stand out in the rain without an umbrella and get wet, well, the good news is later on we can get dry. We'll be fine. The clothes may not fit the same, but oh well, we can always get more clothes. So and this goes back to my my tap dancing. My fluffing and bluffing, which has always been my go-to default when I have no idea what the hell I'm doing and what everybody else is wearing, which has basically been the story of my life. Every fool thing I have ever done has been based on that reality moment. I don't know what's happening, but I don't want to disappoint. I mean, we're all here. It's the least I can do. It's not that I'm Mother Teresa. It's that I worked hard for this, and I'm certainly not going to let some random thing, oh look, an elephant, I'm not going to let that get in the way of what I intended to do. So this is my backstory to get us all set up, and oh goodness, it's only 11 minutes past 10. I went too early. Oh well. My subject today is survival mechanisms. And we all have them, whether we know it or not. We all use them, whether we know it or not. And what people don't realize, and I certainly am not a great deal brighter than anyone else, I've just spent more time thinking about it, we are not able to simply shift from survival mode to survival mode. We are not able to choose to opt in to the one we want. These are thrust upon us by the little guy who lives in the back of your head who hands out things to say when you're at a loss. You stand there waiting and he hands you out something, and sometimes it's brilliant, and other times you think, is the real guy on a break? Who are you? Who is this? And so survival comes to us because that's how we're wired. When, we see a train coming, most of us don't say, with any luck it'll pass me. We usually try and get out of the way. And if we can't get out of the way because we're late, or our foot is caught or something, then we try to make ourselves as small as possible so the train will go over us and we'll be more or less unscathed. Sooty, perhaps, but unscathed. And I am sure as sure I can be, that everyone has the same kind of surprise moments when the untoward, the unsuspecting, the gods up there hand us something. Life says, surprise! And we react. We don't always react in the way we think we would. You know, when you say to yourself, why, if I were in trouble, I, if I saw someone in trouble, I, and then, no, you don't, no, you won't, no, you didn't. Because one of your other egos, one of your other survival team members was up next, and they stepped in and caused you, and everyone else, the utmost damned astonishment. So I want to talk about them. Everyone has heard of fight or flight, freeze and hide. Correct? Everybody knows those. Fight is when you rise to the occasion. Suddenly there's a charging army, and there you are, bravely picking up your sword and your shield, saying, I'll save you, Nell, or whatever. And flight is, Nell, you're on your own. And thrust the sword and shield at the unsuspecting Nell and run like everything the other way. No one really knows which one we're going to do at that specific time, in that specific moment. That's because we haven't become aware of our alter egos. We don't know who they are. We've never seen them, certainly. And in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of a survival moment, we're a little busy. We're way too busy to say, good heavens, what happened to the other one? We're just too busy juggling flaming chainsaws to have a philosophical conversation about it. So, fight is the one who will step in. Flight is the one who heads for the hills. Freeze is the one who hopes the camouflage is working and you can't see them. And the advice to the one who freezes is possibly, don't do this with your eyes, because everyone can see them. And so you try to blend. You try to merge. You try to look like everyone else. You try to be like everyone else so no one can see you in the crisis. The other one is hide. And hide is the person who basically becomes an ostrich. The crisis is still happening, but as long as they can't see it, presumably it can't see them. This is flawed logic, but in that moment of crisis, it may be the one people take. So everyone basically is familiar with those things. And what very few people study, unless they, madly in college decided to take 5 English courses at the same time. The guidance counselor said, are you sure? And I said, well, it's my first language. How hard can it be, really? 5 English courses, a lot of essays. Oh, who saw that coming? When you take English, when you study English, you discover that there are different kinds of conflict that you can write about. The most important thing in a story is the conflict, the character. As I said in one of my earlier videos, if you went to a show and you sat there in the seat waiting eagerly to see what happens, and the curtain opened and someone came out and just stood there for ever, and then eventually wandered off and the curtains closed, you'd say to yourself, plot a little thin. I liked her shoes, though. You would expect more to go on. You expect to see some kind of conflict, some suspense, some resolution, some, last-minute crisis. That's why we're there to see the show. Well, all of these conflicts that we write are mirror images of life. We all come into contact and conflict in various ways at various stages in our lives. It begins with ourselves, man in conflict with man, and that brings in all that whole self-loathing thing, or, this is my other good side. Man versus tribe, which is why does he always get the bigger piece of pie? Man versus society, which is, have you seen the new Neighbors? Oh my. Man versus world, which is everything the world can throw at us, whether we're ready or not. And man versus the universe, which is a wonderful thing to imagine, because we always think of the universe as somewhere far off there. You know, when you squint at night, it's somewhere out there. In fact, I have this theory that we are on the inside of our skin. I mean, most of us, please, we should be. Well, that would mean the universe is directly on the outside of our skin. So the universe is here, all around us. And I think if we think of it that way, it explains so much about how it's able to sneak up on us and go boo from behind and scare the living daylights out of us, because it's right there, the universe, going ha ha ha. So our conflict tools, our survival tools, are really required to match these different kinds of conflict. It's not simply fight or flight, freeze or hide. We are so much more evolved than that. So, I'd like to talk to you about the ones that I've come up with. Of course there is fight. There is, how dare you, take that. There is flee, which is run screaming off into the distance. But there is a subset of flee that I call flail. And this is more closely aligned with me, because when I flee, and often when I fight, I find myself tilting at windmills. I find myself stepping backwards in the dark and disappearing down flights of stairs and off the sides of cliffs, hoping against hope that at the bottom I'm not going to be greeted by alligators and thistles and something the dog left behind. And all of those things go through my mind while I'm falling and flailing. And the flailing is a desperate attempt to try and reverse the effects of gravity. If I can flail hard enough, perhaps I'll figure out how to fly and pull myself away. So that doesn't happen much, often, really, maybe twice in my entire history, and I'm sure I can remember the stories inevitably and tell you, burden you with them. So we have fight, which is stepping in and stepping up and saying, how dare you, I'll smite you from the offside. Flee is running like the wind. Fluff, or bluff, or tap dance is the illusion of fighting while stepping back, trying to make it look like I meant to do that. I think that's a fair assessment. And then we have something else. We have that moment in between when we're frozen in time. It's not that we're freezing and hiding. It's that we're stuck in neutral for that split second that seems to last a lifetime, when the fellow upstairs with the clever notes is on coffee break or can't figure out which one to send out. And it's in those moments when we really don't know, we really have nothing to say, we're really stuck, we're stranded. Everyone has been there. Quite often, it's happened to me that when somebody has said something rude or odd, and I've replied immediately, someone will have said later on, "You're so quick. That would have taken me a week to come up with." And I always tell people, well, it's not that I'm more clever than you. I've just had a lot more practice. Now, one of the ways that we can become much, much better at our survival mechanisms is a performer's trick, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm sorry I keep looking down. I keep clicking on this thing that says attention needed. I'm giving you all the attention I can, Facebook, so suck it up. Now, which category is that? I think that was fight, don't you? I think that was probably fight. So the way we can shift, the way we can identify, the way we can kind of take more control of this whole survival mechanism model is by taking ownership of the alter ego best suited to the role. I'm sure we all have thought about, what on earth was I thinking when I said that to him? And that was a situation when the inappropriate alter ego stepped in. Now, I'm not talking about multiple personality disorder where we don't have control. This is the benign form of that. And every actor uses this technique. Consciously, we come up with our alter egos. When I joined the cast of You Can't Do It on Television, the producer, God bless him, would ask me, can you do a French accent? Can you do this? Have you ever thought of that? And I would say, I don't know, let's try. And I would come up with something. And then he and his writers, he was usually the major writer, would go away and invent something for that alter ego to do and say that was suitable to that personality. And then I looked like this brilliant actor, when really I was just stepping into my alter ego's shoes and leaving mine outside the door. So I posted a picture on Facebook this morning of a blonde talking with one of the children on You Can't Do It on Television. And her character was Aunt Pookie, and she was from the South. And her voice was, well, my, Stephanie, aren't you the one? I could just eat you up. My. And in that voice, and with that attitude, it gave the person in costumes and props and makeup the opportunity to say, well, this ridiculous bow in her hair matches that accent perfectly. And let's do this and let's do that. And the writers were able to get carried away and have me say all kinds of things that suited her. That is also a survival technique, because that person is a fluff. My. Have you always intended to drive like that? Instead of saying, let me out of the corner. So I can allow my alter egos to take charge of my conflict survival character who is going to save me from myself. And that gives me the illusion of control when all the world around me is out of control and spinning. When we did the Care Bears, and I had the great good fortune to be invited to do 3 of them, Friend Bear, I'll save you in a minute, was decided on as a valiant but clumsy, very small superhero. And so it gave the writers and it gave the animators an opportunity for him to suddenly disappear off the sides of things and hear him say off camera, ow! And that allowed the other actors and the other characters to react in different ways than if I just said, I'll save you, here I am. It was much more fun. It had more layers. Wish Bear, I wish, was basically should have been called Sigh a lot. And so everyone said, oh, I love her, because of course Wish Bear felt like them when they felt lost and out of control, and so they could take comfort in someone who mirrored them. And when they identified with Wish Bear, they didn't identify with loss or fear. They identified with something external, and they felt better and safer about themselves. You see how sneaky and cunning this is? I'm helping you save you from yourself. Ish. And so each one of the characters, Eleanor Tweed, from Teddy Ruxpin, Eleanor Tweed was essentially an evil troll who was bipolar, and in a previous life had probably had too many glasses of Sterno. I can only do her voice for short periods because it's really painful. Eleanor Tweed! You see what I mean? It's painful, darling. And so, what kind of things could I get away with saying with her? Well, all of them. I could get away with all of them. So again, another tap dancer, another fluff and bluff, another fight, not a flight, never a flight, never in fear, never hiding, never freezing, never wondering if it's okay, because she was crazy. So anytime we are talking, and obviously we're going to be talking a lot, and I'm going to be reading a lot, ta-da, about fame, about what people's expectations of us are, about the way we think the world sees us, whether it's true or not. And we have full control of the decision we make on how we own it. Even when we freeze, when we run, when we back away and hide, it's still us. It's still ours to own. We're still in charge. We haven't given our power away. And we don't get to put it on someone else's shoulders, because life is not a spectator sport. Life is what we make it. Now, I have a wonderful treat for you for Thursday. I've created a new alter ego. I think you're going to love her. She may almost be my favorite, and I haven't even done anything with her. So that's what we have to look forward to on Thursday, and I'm not going to say another thing about it. What I am going to do as a lovely surprise is show you what came in the mail right after Christmas. Ta-da! Are they gorgeous? Are they gorgeous? Are they shoe-tacular or what? Some of you may have already, in that moment, forgotten everything I ever said before that. And the insidious punishment I'm inflicting on you is you're going to have to re-listen to most of this in order to see that shoe again. Oh, well. All right, my lovelies. We made it through a holiday, and now we're looking forward to all things new and wonderful. Be good to you, and hug your loved ones, and I'll see you on Thursday.